Well, welcome, Jorge. So, welcome to GoBeyond. Welcome to our podcast, The Adventures of Alice and Bob. I'm Alice. This is Bob.
I'll take it.
So we just like to get some cybersecurity war stories. This is kind of like the after-hours version of Alice and Bob, the podcast. So maybe you've got an interesting story you can tell us that you've seen, from the Post-it note stuck on the laptop with the password on it to the open container left on the internet. What are your favorite cybersecurity war stories?
Well, one of my horror stories is related to passwords, actually. And is one coworker that he had this universal password for everything. So he had this password that was a capital letter, the first one of the abecedary, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then the next letter, but in lowercase. And sometimes you could get with an asterisk or not, depending if the software did require it. So sometimes when he wasn't around, like, hey, we need to access the system and it's a demo equipment or something like that. Well, use the default password, and you already knew which was the default password.
I was gonna ask you how you came across the password in the first place. So it sounds like you had knowledge of it from him.
He shared that knowledge, but the issue was that if you said, "Oh, it just was for a test POC system," it wasn't an issue. But sometimes he tended to leave that password to many other systems and share that password with many other people of the department. So everyone knew, try that password first. If not, then you have to ask. And I was like, okay, everyone has like that got password everywhere.
So we've seen multiple failures there, right? We've seen a predictable password and the fact he shared it with everyone.
Yes, it was shared maybe with your close colleagues. It wasn't that big of an issue if you want to think of that. But a dictionary attack could guess it very, very fast. So,
okay. And for the people listening at home, do you want to tell us what the password was?
But I even said
we'll bleep it out. No, it's but yeah, I mean, we're joking about it, but I think it's hard to find anybody that's worked in technology long enough that hasn't had or done something like that, right? Whether it's like maybe hopefully not so much on like the kind of corporate critical type systems or whatever, but whenever you end up having like a lab or test environment or things like that, right, it just becomes that kind of ease of getting work done, right? And so that's always that balance in security, right? Of you're trying to have stuff be as secure as possible, but hopefully with the least amount of friction. Sometimes though, it's just all about least amount of friction. Security's not coming into the kind of conversation, if you will.
Absolutely. And one of the things about our podcast is we have like a cartoon graphic style. So we're asking people if you could pick a superhero or supervillain from a comic book to describe information security, cybersecurity today, who would you pick?
I think that I will go with Iron Man.
Iron Man?
Maybe it's too classic, but
solid.
I don't know. I think that the fact that he had Jarvis and that AI that helped him with everything, the AI did anything creative that Tony Stark can't, but Jarvis was that part that was always covering him. And I think that maybe in the cybersecurity future, that might be the way to be secure with all the hassle of the passwords and access, because you need like something that can be your companion, but is easy to interact with. And maybe AI is the way. Jarvis.
Yeah, I mean, two parts I love about that is, A, that you picked your superhero that has the awesome sidekick, as it were. I guess you could consider Jarvis like a sidekick, maybe.
I think so.
This is where I'm going to get ripped up online for my lack of comic knowledge. It's going to be fine. But the other part that I think is really interesting, what you're saying is like, and we were talking about at the conference, right? When you think of things like zero trust, right, which is overused in so many ways and kind of not well defined, but when you're trying to get to like states of least privilege, or where employees only have access to exactly what they need to have access to, right? It's easy to say, but like doing it at scale, doing it across an organization becomes really hard, where you're trying to manually define, what people may or may not need to have access to, and it requires you to have kind of that level of automation and understanding to truly be able to do it. And so that kind of gets into what you're talking about, right? Which is, how do you have that sort of intelligent system that can like make those recommendations, that can more dynamically figure that out for you, becomes crucial. So both Brad's superhero and idea, man.
I think that's great, yeah. And just a quick one, actually. If you were picking one for a cyber villain, so the threat actors that are out there, what person from a comic book series might you pick?
Cyber villain. maybe some mad scientists because they know what they are doing, or maybe not because I don't know. I remember Megamind. He was very smart and he had all that technology on the movie, and he wasn't. He was brilliant, but not that much. And in the end, he used technology to do some things. So maybe with that one we can go.
Okay, that sounds great.
Wait, what would your cyber villain be?
Oh, good question. Good question. I'm thinking the Penguin, maybe.
The Penguin.
The Penguin, like the really old-fashioned Batman. Because I just like the idea of just like a threat actor just waddling around making really bad penguin noises and smoking a cigar, like the really old Batman films. When you hit them, it comes up with like a kapow thing.
Is it some like idea of like the opportunistic script kiddie, just kind of fumbling through?
Exactly. Just
and
bouncing
you're
around.
The one that didn't
Nobody
patch
quite knows
Log4j. Is that
how someone who dresses as a penguin and waddles around has enough money to launch a major attack? Somehow they do, but when you hit them, it goes kablamo or kapow or something.
I like it.
I mean, this is starting to turn into sort of weird therapy for me at this point, so I'm probably going to cut myself off.
My answer would have no explanations. For some reason, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters popped in my head.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't actually know why.
Yeah,
don't really know why.
So as we round off these weird tangents that we've gone down, we've all made mistakes in the past. This is a safe confessional space. So is there something you've done in terms of cybersecurity in the past that you thought was absolutely fine at the time, but now if you think back, you think, why on earth did I do that? Why was I doing that at the time?
I think that a classic one will be to write your passwords. That's a classic, and when I was very young, I didn't see an issue even using easy to guess passwords because I wanted easy. But then when I started working on cybersecurity field, I got very scared, and I started even using MFA for everything I can get, or SMS verification when it was the only other option. So that will be like when I was very young and I tried to do that kind of things. I think that at this moment there are many options to secure your digital identities, and many the newer generations have access to those new ways.
Yeah. No, the passwords on a Post-it note is an absolute classic. So I mean, come on, Mark, have you ever done that?
I have ever done embarrassing things in technology and security? Yes.
I know you've done that because on YouTube there's an old documentary of you where before you let them in a room, you said, just let me check I haven't got any passwords lying around written down.
This is true.
So I
was doing a sweep. But that was probably other people's passwords.
Okay.
So to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's interesting what you were saying, right? Like how the technology evolves over time, and since you're trying to date me here on age and stuff like that, as the guy that used to have to do hacking demos between two laptops because there was no virtualization, right? I remember one of the first times I was actually doing like a presentation, like a training education. It was for NASA, and I think it was like 18, something like that. And I was doing this hacking demo between two laptops, and it was like a Windows. It was a Windows remote system vulnerability, but it was in a particular Windows service that would cause the system to be unstable and cause it to reboot, right? And so you do the attack, you're kind of demoing, and this whole room full of people like watching you do it. And then now, in order to kind of like do the next demo that I was going to do, you have to restart the computer. And not like restart a computer in modern times. I mean, like you're sitting there ad-libbing and making stuff up for a good 5 minutes while your laptop's rebooting. So the technology progression is awesome. I think on your point of what you're saying of, moving away from not just guessable passwords and stuff, but like when you start looking at like FIDO2 authentication, things that you can do that are like more kind of, unfishable at some level and stuff. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us, Jorge. Or maybe we'll call you Iron Man from now on. That's
I like it.
Great
it's gonna
time.
Stick.
Thank you for having me.